Gosh, it's so involved to,
I love it. I'm not saying that I don't like it a lot, but it's so involved to set up the audio, the video, the computer, all the, to stream to all the different places and to do it in a high quality. So it's easy to to forget I just did that introduction and nobody could hear me the whole time. So anyways, if you're still here, welcome in, and welcome to ask questions and share your experience. Hmm. Go ahead. Okay. Could you say it one more time?
Tradition versus, oh, I don't need a teacher, or I don't need that because the Buddha wasn't didn't have a teacher. The Buddha wasn't ordained. The Buddha was, gained enlightenment
Yeah,
on his own.
that's
I was
right.
kind of wondering what your perspective is between those two arguments.
Well, I want to be more generous. So, really, to say that this is my perspective would be less generous than is right to express. Um, if we want to become a master carpenter or a master plumber or a skillful in any field, right? Let alone the mind, the most subtle field, the most subtle way, the nature of the mind and understanding the mind. We have to, and it is ideal, it is essential that we work with people that are skilled and more experienced. That's even when we're just talking about something like carpentry or physical labor, right? So how much more so is that true when we're talking about transforming the mind at the most subtle and fundamental levels? And what that means is that we need to be a part of a community. We have to have not necessarily like our ideal of a spiritual teacher. So, you have the ideal that finding your spiritual teacher means that you go to India and you find someone by the river Ganges, and they take you as their disciple. It doesn't have to be like that, but you have to connect with, for sure, real meditation masters, real spiritual masters, real Buddhist masters. And you have to learn about who they are and their teachings and their experience by listening to them, by following them. Okay, so Thich Nhat Hanh is alive and well. Master Thich Nhat Hanh is alive and well, and you can be with him in your home. I didn't even realize so much that Tay was had such a grasp on English. Was such a fluent and an incredible English speaker, and yet he is. You can go to YouTube And you can listen to long form Dharma talks and guided meditations from from Thich Nhat Hanh, from one of the most prolific meditation masters in human history, modern human history. So what are people doing? Right? Having these baseless discussions about what they think about meditation. I'm sorry, but it's wrong. It's incorrect. You need to go and listen so that you can be informed. And then we have those discussions as a part of a Sangha, as a part of a community. Now, the other major point, which is quite clear, is think about playing basketball, or think about playing soccer or football, right? If you are in elementary school and you are the best basketball player in elementary school, if you only know about basketball in elementary school, you may believe that you are the king of the universe in terms of basketball, isn't it? The moment that you get to middle school or high school, etc., and it goes high up, the NBA is universal. I mean, we're talking about just uncomprehendable physical stature and skill and precision and strength and endurance, all that, right? So the same is it's even more true in spirituality. So you might have an experience. You might develop yourself to a certain degree. You might be the king of middle school basketball. But until you go to high school, and even more so, until you get onto the court, until you test your frame, until you test your position, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand for yourself, not in terms of like telling other people about how wise you are, but you don't know for yourself because you haven't tested. You haven't been on that court. You haven't been on the field of play. So finding a Sangha, finding a spiritual teacher, connecting with the true Dhamma and the true Sangha and the true Buddha is essential for actually developing. And that development is not just about yourself, because in Buddhism, we're not fixated on self-appearances. It's just to be used, right? We're not stuck on it. So if you're really serious about spirituality, you will get into a position quite quickly where you realize you have this insight, whoa, my life isn't just about me. And so then this development is not just in terms of dealing with your own suffering, but it also is in terms of dealing with the suffering of others and the suffering of the world. And this is the real spiritual path. And there aren't many excuses because we're in the modern age. There are, the highest level meditation masters, spiritual masters in the world over the past 100 years are available on YouTube to listen to their Dharma talks, and to join Zoom meetings or join online communities, and then find communities in your area. Plum Village Sangha, for example, they have groups all over the world, many of them in like every state in the US, where you can go and be in a circle and sing with people, which is wonderful.
So with that being said, following that, would you say that at some point somebody has to pick a particular sect or tradition to follow?
No. What it means is that you have to get involved. You don't have to pick anything to follow. I'm a non-sectarian Buddhist monk. I am a non-sectarian American bhikkhu. I've been ordained according to monastic law in Thailand. Right, traditional monastic law going back how many hundreds of years or whatever. But my role as a bhikshu and another person's role as a Buddhist, it doesn't have anything to do with, Theravada or Mahayana or Vajrayana or whatever. Well, it's Buddhism. It has to do with the Buddha. And the Buddha was not a sectarian. If anything, the Buddha was anti-sectarian, isn't it? So getting involved with a particular tradition or getting involved with a particular group or a particular teacher is essentially the ways and means of getting involved. And unless you find the good causes and conditions and the ways and means to get involved, then you will not have success on the spiritual path. Think of it in terms of a muscle. right? I want to be, I want to be very strong. My teacher told me recently, get weaker. He said you need he said you need to focus on being weaker, and I think something that goes along with that is fasting. He believes in fasting a lot, and I've also had a lot of development with fasting. But think of it like a muscle. Okay, whatever muscle stands out to you, and think of training that muscle, developing that muscle. Well, what do? You pick up a heavy weight and you put it down, or developing the heart muscle, developing your cardiovascular strength, right? So what do? You start to walk, you start to jog, you start to run. Now, who doesn't want to be healthier and stronger? Who doesn't want to be fit and what many people would call beautiful? Does anyone not want that? Is anyone not interested in that? Maybe to some degree, but for the most part, we would like to be at optimal physical and mental health, right? So how many people can do that? How many people can regulate the amount of sugar that they take into their body? How many people can go for a jog every day and do yoga every day and stretch every day and take care of their health in such a subtle way? Very, very few. Very, very few. It's so difficult, isn't it? Now, compare the muscle of the heart, which of course, no offense, beloved one, or compare the muscle of the bicep or whatever muscle stands out to you, okay, with the brain, with the muscle of the brain. How subtle, how refined. So spiritual training and spiritual development in a very gross way, gross versus subtle, is training the muscle of the brain. It's so gross, so gross this way, very far from the subtlety of spiritual training. But we can think of it that way as an analogy. So to really do this training and to have success in this training and to develop the faculties of the mind and the heart mind and freedom from suffering and joy and generosity and forgiveness and compassion and what does karuna mean? Karuna, what does karuna mean?
It means compassion, Bhante.
Okay, so we covered it. It is so difficult and so extensive, and it will take so much devotion and time and dedication and resolve. So unless you have a community, unless you have a group, a teacher, a place where you can go, teachings that you can follow up with and feel that they are resonate with you and that you trust those teachings, you will not have success in anything other than deceiving yourself. And what's easier? Let's hear it. What's easier? Is it easier to become enlightened or develop a high spiritual experience or status? Or is it easier to convince yourself that you've developed that? Is it easier to be very, very compassionate, or is it easier to convince yourself that you're very compassionate? And one of the trends that we've had in Western Buddhism, and I'm sure it's everywhere, everybody's on the world. The world is the West, right? Except for the East and the South and the North. One of these trends is people selling attainments, right? They're giving these descriptions of first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and it feels like this, and it looks like this, and it's like that, and it's like that, and you got to get there. So what's easier? Is it easier to experience that for yourself naturally and authentically, or is it easier to convince yourself that you've done that? And if someone is selling you a book, if someone is selling you some kind of scheme for enlightenment, what is preferential for them? It's preferential for them that you that you most easily experience the effect from that book or from that description. And so people convince themselves that they have a real understanding, or people convince themselves that they're at a high spiritual level when in fact they're not. And this is why we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And especially this is why we take refuge in the practice. So that these notions or ideals or generalities do not stick to us. They couldn't, because we're practitioners, you know? And if it's something that gets in our way, we know how to put it down and continue with our practice.
Bhante, I personally experience you as, really pushing and driving, and like your language, you use the word success, you use the word high level spiritual. I've never known any in all my decades of life Dharma teachers that use that kind of language. So your language gives the game away. Why are you thinking about success? Why are you thinking about high spiritual level? This is really vulgar thinking and vulgar language. And it tells me that what you're trying to convince yourself, the only person you're trying to convince that how great a Buddhist you are, Bhante, is yourself.
Well, I am not convinced, which is why I am a practitioner and because I'm a monk. If I was convinced, then I suppose I would neither practice nor be a monk. I would just go about doing whatever I like to do. The truth of the matter is that we don't get to trick ourselves when it comes to physical strength. When you put your elbow, Ayla, on the arm wrestling table, you will know for sure how strong you are compared to another. So it is said that the Buddha is the highest of spiritual teachers. The Buddha is the trainer of gods and all beings. And in
You use
recognizing
ego
this,
dialogue too much. It is not necessary. An enlightened person would not need to say, I am highest, I am great, I am sincere. It does not make sense. Enlightened people don't use that language, don't think like that. So your thinking and your language is the truth. You
thank
cannot
you.
escape what you think. You cannot escape the words you use. And your thinking and your language tells the world what you are, who you are, how you are.
Well, I hope that the world is listening very closely. Water is wet. Fire is hot. The path is not for those, or cannot be walked for those who are unwilling to put down the grasping onto solid appearance of someone. So, talking about strength, talking about speed, talking about higher and lower levels is only a means of communication to develop our deeper recognition of what our situation is so that we can go beyond the duality of higher and lower. But until we can comfortably and wholeheartedly look at duality and the reality of duality that is not obscure or obtuse, such as the reality of differences in strength or differences in height or differences in our capacity to play basketball. So also there are differences in capacities to be compassionate. There are differences in capacities to deal with suffering in a way that does not cause more suffering. And if we do not recognize those differences in capacities, especially as people coming from a Western culture that do not have a background of experience with enlightened teachers or monks and nuns or Buddhism, then it must be emphasized that it is just as solid, it is just as boilerplate, it is just as standard as a difference in strength. So that these people, bringing it back to Tao and their question and their point about, do we need to have a teacher? Do we need to have a sangha? What about these people that say they're figuring it out for themselves quite well? Well, they don't know what they're talking about. And they won't know that they don't know what they're talking about until they step into the fire, until they step into the sangha. And fire is a warmth, but you have to be very careful with it. You have to be very gentle about. I remember one time, for some reason or another, I had a napkin and it caught fire. There was a candle nearby or something. And it was in my hand and it was only on fire for a little period of time and it burned me. It gave me a burn. So even a napkin, even a small piece of paper on fire can really burn us, right? That is why we have to learn how to trust the authority, the power, the legitimacy of detachment, and that it seems background. But actually, there is much less leeway. There's much less wiggle room than the difference between an NBA player, all-star NBA player, and a college level player or a high school level player. That's really the reality of the situation. But if we can't recognize that, if we don't have the faith and the trust to see that in ourselves and in the world, then we won't believe anyone. We won't trust anyone. We won't follow the teachings of the Buddha. We will go to the Plum Village community in France and we'll think that we've got everything figured out. And it goes to that saying, right? It goes to that saying, everybody's enlightened until they have a roommate. So this is saying, hey, go and find your roommate. Then you will know if you're enlightened or not.
That's so true, Bhante. That's so true. Oh my God, that's so true.
I can say I will share, and this maybe is taboo, but I will share about my attainment. One of my attainments, dear Ayla. And what I have attained that I did not have before, for sure.
Sorry, my name's Michelle.
Michelle. Oh, Ayla Michelle. Okay, I'll just say Michelle. So Michelle, I'll share with
Yeah.
you is that I have attained to try and be a good person. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want anyone to be hurt. I want to stop those ways, those energies in myself of greed, anger, and delusion, non-practical, complicated thinking that have a capacity to cause suffering to myself and to other people. That is my attainment. Is it high? Is it low? I don't care if it's high or low. That's not the point. But for some people, they don't have the structure, they don't have the causes and conditions to have trust or to have faith. And this is a disaster in spiritual life. And also in America, we don't emphasize respect in our culture. The only people you respect are people with Bugattis. The only people you respect are people with, iced out, bust down rollies. That's who's respected. That's it. And in other situations, of course, there's sometimes those situations where we have a great coach or we come from a good family. But like me, many people in America are coming from broken homes, broken families. I believe that the divorce rate in America is probably close to 50%, isn't it? So that's half, maybe it's not, but if it were, that's half of American families and that's half of American children that are coming from broken homes. So how are we going to respect people when we come from a place where of being broken? And what we know how to respect is strength. We know how to respect athletes. We know how to respect violence. We know how to respect war. But pointing to that and then moving that respect, moving that capacity to respect towards spirituality, towards dana, sila, samadhi, panya, generosity, virtue, meditation, and insight. It will take time, but we can do it. We are doing it. We are having success. And that success means what? It means that we are not focused on higher and lower levels. We're focused on smriti. We're focused on virtue is mindfulness. We're not focused on, blindly devoting ourselves to some guru or teacher or sangha. We're focused on recognizing our part of the sangha and taking responsibility for that and
I
helping
remember
others as
saying
well.
to one of my sisters, my dearest sisters at Plum Village, when I'm in the Plum Village, and there are many sisters there, monks and nuns don't live together. We just live like females and males separately. So there's lots of sisters there and lots of lay female members. And in my perception, in my sense, in my intuition, in my feeling, some I perceive as positive and some I perceive as negative. And this includes our highest monastics, like Brother Fat Pooh. You know, is he in a high position? Is he good? Am I supposed to respect him?
Well, we're all human,
So
right?
I was saying to my sister, I was standing there, we were like chopping the vegetables together, and I was surrounded by sisters and lay practitioners. And I said to my sister, I feel so bad that I don't like some of our sisters and some of our lay friends. I felt really guilty that the truth is, I do perceive some of them as not good. And I felt so bad, so guilty. I wish that wasn't the case. Even in this community, even many things you do,
Right.
Bhante, like I perceive as not good, and I feel bad. I feel guilty. I feel so guilty that I perceive it as bad, but I can't stop. It's like an instinctual, intuitive felt sense. I can't stop it. It happens automatically. I don't choose to think a person or a monastic, whoever it is or whatever is bad. It just happens. And I
Right.
feel so bad.
Well, Ayla, I don't think that you should feel bad about it. I think that actually you should recognize how precious it is that you're willing to share that intimacy and that vulnerability with the group. We need more people who are willing and able to show up in that way. It actually is a real kind of generosity. At least from my view, it is. And the more people that can come up and share in that way, and of course, if they aren't practitioners, then they may obscure themselves. They may obscure their own position as being human and being a part of the community, right? So we need practitioners. We need people who are involved. We need people who are engaged in whatever way they can. And so they can be engaged by being donors. They can be engaged by being volunteers. They can be engaged by being meditators. They can be engaged by being academics. But it's not enough to just show up and say, hey, what's up, and let it all hang out. It's really inappropriate. It's like we have a university professor, because I've dealt with a lot of young men online and done a lot of mentoring and a lot of answering questions. Young men who have nothing to do with Buddhism, they're not religious, nothing like that, right? And sometimes one of these men will kind of come up and they say, I have something to say. I don't agree with this. I've got to protest. I'm here to protest. And it's just like going into a university classroom with a professor and with a large group of people and saying, hey, I've got something to say. So the professor says, all right, go and say it. I don't agree with this. And then the professor says, well, okay, sit down and take as much notes as you can and do your work and then follow up with me. And then they say, no, I'm not going to do anything. I've got something to say. So then what do? Get out. Get out of here. Because we are engaged. We are involved. We are donors. We are volunteers. We are practitioners. We are academics. We are researchers. We are do-gooders. We are monks and nuns, yogis and lay people. We are the fourfold Sangha. And we're busy. So it's not that that person isn't loved or valuable, but it's that that person needs to go and work on themselves. And that we may be too busy to put that, or too involved to put that person on our back and try to attend to their every needs. You know, the Buddha wasn't going around and kind of serving random people. You know, hey, what do you need me to do for you? And just say, you know, tell me, talk to me. I get a lot of people, this is an interesting case. I get a lot of people who reach out to me with questions. And then they tell me, hey, if you have any questions, you just let me know. Or if you ever want to talk, let me know. So we need to understand the guest and the host. And for them, this is just a presentation of deeper confusions that they're going through, right? That you go to someone to ask a question, and then you think that that person has a question for you or is asking you a question. It's very, very confusing. So we have to understand guest and host. And it's very, very subtle because it's in terms of the mind. Right? It's like someone comes to your house and says, hey, I don't like what you're doing here. Okay. Well, you know, what am I going to do what can I do for you? We don't take solicitors at this address. I'm sorry that you're confused. You know, call me back later and I'll try to help you. And then when that person calls you back, they say, hey, I'm calling you to let you know that I don't like what you're doing. Do you have any questions for me? No, I do not. I mean, if I was a great bodhisattva or something like that, then of course it is workable. But we can't do everything all at once like that. So we have to know how to pick up the things that are right to pick up. We have to know how to put down the things that are right to put down. And we especially need to be open about coming and going. It's not a big deal. You know? Coming and going is natural. It's what we do. There's a difference between leaving a place and then coming back to a place and being locked in a prison or being in a fight to the death or something like that. You know, change happens. People come and go. We are removed from places. We are told, hey, you need to go. Or, you know, we're thrown out from the place, hopefully in a way that doesn't harm our body and mind too much. That's just natural. That's training. That's life. That's impermanence. And sometimes we get feedback that we don't agree with or we don't feel that is appropriate or right. Well, we still get feedback. And we have to digest that. We have to accept that. And in the Plum Village tradition, in Thich Nhat Hanh's community, that's really valuable. You know, that's one of the most valuable things that they do for, especially for the monastics, is that we get these feedbacks. You know, I had the opportunity to participate in some of that. I'm not a Plum Village monastic. I'm not really a part of their tradition in any meaningful way, but I got to experience that, you know, and they have it in kind of a three-form way of offering flowers, offering compost, and offering suggestions. So we say the beautiful parts that we notice about that other person. We say the difficult to digest parts about that person. And we say, hey, maybe I have some suggestions for you. But unless you're involved, unless you're engaged, unless you're a donor, a volunteer, a do-gooder, a practitioner, an academic, someone who's following precepts, then you don't really have a seat at the table. It doesn't mean that we won't feed you or that I won't feed you. I want to feed people. I want to make sure that people have what they need to the extent that I can. But we have to be involved. And the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the Triple Gem is this wonderful way to get involved in spiritual life. And it is unparalleled in the world. It's unparalleled in history, known history, a spiritual community like this. And what Te has built as well is unparalleled. It's the finest Sangha for the Western group that's ever existed, for modern engaged Buddhism that's ever existed.
I agree. I really like what you were saying about watering the flowers um, and acknowledging the mud. And that makes so much sense from a psychological perspective, and the good parts of a person and the bad parts of the person. And there's always the two things there. And also, maybe more controversially, I'd like to say, I do believe this is a controversial thing to say, that like with Thai, I feel that his mud, very little of his mud was ever acknowledged. And I think that he was put on a pedestal for being all good, because he was. But there were mud parts as well. And a part of me regrets that I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but the first time I met Sister Chang Kong, I was so shocked. So Ty is all good and his partner is all bad. I don't know, it just didn't feel right, and it was such a shock to my system. I'll always be shocked at the contrast between their personalities.
And to get out of this duality of like complete good or complete bad, because when this was my experience in Tabarwa Tanlin when I first lived there in my early monastic years, where I came across this kind of small rectangle room that was basically a hospice care area for very old elderly women that didn't have a lot of money. And they had attendants there, younger women who were nurses or attending to them as much as they could and helping them as much as they could. But the room was not very clean, and especially it smelled of urine very strongly. And at that time, of course, it came up in me like, what's going on here? And oh, someone should clean this room, and that it won't be that easy to clean this, or it won't be that difficult actually to clean this room and to take care of it in a better way. And it's my great regret that I did not do that. But it brings up the point, don't think about being generous. Don't think about doing good deeds. Do it. Be generous. Offer coconuts. Offer cleaning. Offer service in whatever way you can. And some of us can do it in a certain way, and others can do it in another way. And we may find in the more that we show up and do it, the more that other people will be empowered to do it. And then we can support those people. We can trust those people. We said, wow, look at how kind these people are. I wanted to help do this. And they said, no, wait, we will do it. We want to do it. Because maybe you're a monk. It's not appropriate for you to clean a women's in Myanmar, to clean an old women's hospice room like that. So don't carry those regrets, but do it. And then when you get involved in doing like that, when you get involved in doing those good deeds and those actions of generosity like that, these people that are maybe confused or may want to have like a dialogue about your problems, what's there? It's so clearly transparent. It's so clearly empty of problems because you're just cleaning urine so that these old women, cleaning urine off the floor so that these beautiful old women can have a nicer environment to have their final days and weeks and months and years in. So that's what I'm all about. That's what this community is all about. That's what Tabarwa is all about, is that we really start to get involved and engaged in doing all kinds of good deeds. And consider, what is your role? What is your involvement? What is your engagement? Are you a donor? Are you a volunteer? Are you a practitioner? Are you an academic?
I just want to say this so it becomes more clear where my thinking is on this. So Sister Chan Kong was a workhorse and she started the School of Social Service. She did so much good work. She raised so many millions of pounds to build the community. And she helped save so many lives. But the way she thinks and the way she speaks, the way she behaves, her personality, her manner, her aura is rough. You can do so. She did the good. She did the good, but the energy was a dragon. The energy wasn't an angel. Tai didn't go around raising money. Tai would never use that word money. It's a dirty word. Tai, you know, Tai devoted his life to cultivating a peaceful, mindful, beautiful way of being in the world. And what I'm trying to tell you, and I do support your efforts with your teacher, and I used to belong to a Mida order that was all about social work. So I totally get whole social impulse that you're on, and I support that. At the same time, I would like you to know that you can build millions of hospitals and raise billions of pounds, but that doesn't mean that you are in Buddha. That doesn't mean that there is you are transmitting some wholesome energy in yourself and in your way of being and interacting with others in the world.
Well, in that case, yeah, of course. And in that case, it does not matter. It does not matter. It is not important. It is just cleaning urine off the floor. It is just attending to someone who is at the very edge of their life, where your voice and your opinion and your perspective and your judgments, which we all have, do not matter, do not have a place, where get out may become more stern, not because of
From an
you.
experiential perspective, but from an experiential, phenomenological perspective, your behavior and your way of being, your body language, Bhante, the words you use are more important than any idea, any concept, any theory, or
That's right. That's
or any
exactly the point.
theory.
That is precisely the
That's the
point.
point I'm trying to make. It's
That is
not
precisely the
what you're
point.
doing, it's the way that you're doing it. So that was the big contrast between Tai and his partner, Sister Chan Kong. For Tai, it was his way was mindful and peaceful and
Right.
exceptionally loving, exceptionally
Right.
compassionate.
So this
Her
is the
way,
multifaceted
she
sangha.
did lots of things. Sister Chan Kong started lots of projects, social service projects, but her way of being in the world was not nourishing to people, was not healing to people in itself. Her way of being in itself was not the message, was not the cure, was not the answer. For
Well,
her, the answer she gave was, here is a hospital, here is a house, here is a boat, here is a school. Look, I can raise money for hundreds of these. That was her answer. For Tai, the answer was, myself, my being is your medicine, is your answer, is your way.
right. And that gets into the point that Buddhism is not about becoming a monk. Buddhism is not about becoming a nun. Buddhism is not about attending intensive meditation retreats. It is about the multifaceted Sangha. It is about doing all kinds of good deeds in limitless ways with mindfulness and detachment. And that is why, if we consider ourselves to be a part of the Sangha, if we consider ourselves to be a part of the path, we have to question, what is our role and what are we doing? Are we a donor? Are we making donations? Are we supporting the Sangha? Are we supporting this work monetarily or in whatever ways, right? Are we a volunteer? Are we volunteering for helping with meditation, for helping people that are sick and old age and in need or what have you? Are we practitioners? Are we serious about Sila Samadhi Panya? Are we academics? Are we involved in research, right? Are we ordaining to become monks and nuns, to devote our lives to that? And all of these things can go together, right? We have many opportunities to do good deeds. So for me, I am a monk. I am a donor. I am meaning that I am participating in making donations, monetary donations, concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. I like to do that. I'm inspired by doing that. Okay, I don't need to go into the precise details about it, but I do it publicly. And I would like to be more of a researcher. I hope that that opens up for me to do more research and to study more. Um, I want to get that back. I used to be a reader when I was a young person, but I kind of lost it with the age of technology and YouTube and audio visual and all that. So I know that I'm involved and that I'm engaged. And it's also important that we know, as members of the Sangha, where we are engaged, what we are involved with. And for some of us, that will be more transparent. Like, you will see that this person is a monk or a nun, or you will see that this person is a practitioner. And in the Asian Buddhist traditions, when people make donations, it's plastered on the wall, their name and how much and how regularly, and maybe a message from them, and all that jazz is plastered on the temple wall, so that it's known that these are donors, that these are serious people supporting the Sangha. And of course, it is much more important that we ourselves know the degree of involvement that we are. It's not that we're justifying ourselves or that we're proving ourselves. It's not about that. But when we step into the Sangha, when we become a Buddhist, when we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, this self is expanding out. It's expanding into and related to and interbeing with the donors and the volunteers and the meditators and the academics, and those who embody insight, right? Because it becomes embodied. So it is also important that the others know where we're at and what we're doing. so that they can support us, and so that they can know how we can support them because of our skill set, because of what we're involved with. It is a big play, a very, very big play that we're making here. And much more so, it is a big play, what Sayadaw Otamasara is doing and what his intentions are. So we're under that umbrella. And this Sangha, of course, is informed by modern engaged Buddhism in whatever form it takes. It is exciting, and it will only become disturbing if we do not engage, if we do not involve with the path, if we do not listen to Dhamma talks, if we do not follow precepts, if we do not rely on our capacity to be generous in all kinds of different ways. To the degree that we are excited, to the degree that we are interested, to the degree that we are inspired, we must meet that with actions of generosity. We must meet that with our practice. And if we don't, yeah, we will become disturbed. And when things come up, we will be confused because we're not engaged enough yet. You know, we get to a point where we're so engaged in being a good person that, you know, other people's opinions and judgments and views are irrelevant. Not that they aren't valuable, not that they aren't useful, but that, you know, we're quite skillful already. And we're using that skill to develop wholesome states of mind, period. And of course, there's all kinds of issues and accidents and errors and lesser points. I mean, you know, for all of us, if we don't wear our clothes and we go for a walk down the street, it's an emergency, right? And the clothes aren't even a part of our bodies. We don't even take them when we, you know, go for a shower or something to clean the body, right?
Sorry, I need to go to the doctor's now. So please, can I wish you all a good day?
Please do.
And yeah, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, thank you, dear
So
Michelle. Be well.
yeah, bye bye.
Bhante, may I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Excuse me. So I live in Austin, Texas, and we have a couple of Watts here in town. And I know that there are opportunities to serve, to volunteer, and to help. And I'm relatively new, actually pretty new to this, and I find great joy in helping provide for the needs of our practitioners. I would like to ask, and this is because I'm learning etiquette in terms of how to interact with new new sanghas in the area that do not know me. Um, can you advise the best way to approach and offer volunteering seeking what needs they have and how I can provide with what skills or abilities I have, whether it's, you know, a financial donation
Yeah.
or a in-kind services.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very precise, Lauren, and I'm very happy to have you here. And um, yeah, I'm glad to see you and that you're taking a vocal role in the community right now. It's really inspiring, and I thank you a lot. You're already doing perhaps more than you know. When we're dealing with these Watts or these temples, it's important that, you know, Buddhist temples in our area, it's important we first recognize that we don't know about them mostly, and also they don't know about us. They don't know who we are. And a lot of people who have mental distress or mental illness are attracted to Buddhism naturally. That's how I got into Buddhism, because I was deeply mentally ill. I was deeply mentally sick, and I was, you know, I wasn't going up, I was going down, you know, a lot of momentum in that illness, that suffering. So, firstly, research. As much as you can, try to call ahead. But even before that, before you make contact, see what is they're offering. So, see what their website is. See what you can find out about that group or temple in terms of what they offer, not in terms of snooping, not in terms of being a private eye, right? See what they offer. This is also a form of stealing. Snooping is a form of stealing. Trying to find things that are not offered is stealing, and it's a breach, and you will have to pay back that debt because you've gone around taking things that were not offered. So you check the website and then see if they offer some programs, see if they offer some normal access points where you can go and attend. Now, you may not be able to find anything in that. So the next step would be to call them. Okay. And on calling them, you can say, hello, I'm a Buddhist. I would like to come by and make a donation. All right. In traditional Theravada Buddhist temples throughout the world, 90+% of them, the usual way that people interact with monks, the usual way that people engage with monks is by making donations to them. Okay, usually monetary donations. And the monk will use that for the temple, for their basic needs, whatever it may be. Okay, so you can go to the temple and bring an envelope, okay, something that's generous. So $5 in an envelope is okay, of course, but try to be generous. Be what generous is for you. I like the rule that if you are a person of lower means at this time, whatever that may be, give as much as you can. Right? Donate as much as you can. And you have to first understand that they don't know you, and you don't know about them, and they don't know about you. So showing up there to do gardening or fix the plumbing or, trying to arrange things for them is not really tenable. Right? So we start by making some kind of financial contribution usually. So you go the rule. So if you're a person of lower means, financial means, give what you can give. Offer the sentiment, offer the kindness, offer the expression of generosity is more important than some kind of amount. If you are a middling person, so if you're like an American middle class person from the lower to the upper middle class, which is basically being a wealthy person, give more than you think is appropriate. Right? Because you have a lot of money. If you're a middle class person in America, you've got tons of wealth. So you give extra, more than you think is normal, or even more than you're comfortable with, but not outside your means. Just you really practice generosity. And then if you're a wealthy person, good luck, because it will be very difficult to get the effect of generosity when money has such a low value to you. When you have so much, and when you're so binded by greed, when you're so binded by your involvement with money and your power, etc. So for wealthy people, good luck. Try. So then we can go to the temple, hopefully calling ahead of time. But even if you don't call ahead of time, you can bring an envelope, you can bring some flowers, you can bring some fruit, and try to go and see the monks and make a donation. And hopefully, there they will, maybe someone will be able to speak English, and then you'll be able to have a conversation with them and engage with them. Learn about the community, learn about what's offered, learn about if there are some other monks in the area that do speak English that are offering classes. And anyway, just going to the Buddhist temple with an offering, even if it's not money, even if it's some fruit and some flowers, you will have the chance to find the Buddha hall. Usually it's open, usually it's accessible, or there will be Buddhas outside, and you can go and make an offering to the Buddha. Generosity is not about transaction. It's not about accountability. It's not about managing funds or finding out where your money's going or what it's being used for. That's something else. That is being involved with the organization. That's taking care of the organization, right? That's something else. So we go there and we practice generosity. We practice dana, and it would be very lovely and very nice. And for people who are starting out on the Buddhist path, let's say American people or people who do not come from a cultural Buddhist background, we immediately have the chance to go on pilgrimage. So now we've developed this resolve inside of ourselves that, like, oh, I'm a Buddhist and I want to get involved with Buddhism. So now all we need to do is go to Google Maps, search for Buddhist temple near me, and you've got all these opportunities for pilgrimage. You've got all these opportunities to go and visit real Buddhist temples. They might be higher or lower. They might be suited for Western people or not. There might be good monks there or not. But the Buddha is there. The lineage is there. And your mind can be supported by going there with that aspiration to practice dana, sila, samadhi, panya. So generosity is the entryway to virtue. And we can also say virtue as mindfulness. And mindfulness is the entryway, sustained mindfulness is the entryway to samadhi, or states of absorption, being absorbed in mindfulness, right? And from being absorbed in mindfulness, or from being absorbed into present moment experiencing, you develop insight. Oh, the physical sensations in my body are more impermanent than they are permanent. The ideas, the notions, the beliefs, the stories that come into my mind are much more impermanent than they are permanent. And we experience that in depth by the quality of wakefulness and deep awareness that we experience in samadhi, or absorption into mindfulness. And this is a guide for anyone who wants to get connected with a Buddhist temple near them. I'm not really concerned with people becoming followers of my teacher. I'm not really concerned with people becoming followers of me. I'm not really concerned with people becoming Buddhist. My main concern is that people have access points for healing from their suffering and learning how to deal with suffering. And I speak from my own experience of someone who was in great mental distress, great systematic suffering. It was a systematic condition in me. And that these ways and means of Buddhism, this path that the Buddha presented to us, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, is a very realistic and practical and robust way to start dealing with suffering. And that's what I'm concerned with. So if they want to be involved with their local Buddhist temples, that's a way to do it. If they want to be involved with me or the Tabarwa organization, welcome. We'd love to have you. We're looking for more people to get involved in all kinds of ways. Firstly, as much as they can, and then more than they can. That's when the healing happens. Okay, so we have a question coming in through Facebook, quite an interesting question. Dao Vadoi says, I would like to ask, a monk who has not yet attained sainthood preaches the Dharma to lay people who have not yet attained sainthood. But after listening to the Dharma, will the listener attain sainthood before the person preaching the Dharma? It is possible, for sure, because the Dharma is the transmission from the Buddha. And if a monk becomes a saint or touches the deathless, right, realizes some degree of enlightenment, then their enlightenment is a transmission or a continuation from the Buddha's original enlightenment. They didn't get it from themselves. So that monk who may be at a high or low level, who is preaching the Dharma, the Dhamma, may be able to convey or to point to the teachings of the Buddha, and the Buddha was enlightened. So from that Buddha's enlightenment and that monk who may or may not be enlightened, we don't know, that layperson who's listening may become enlightened upon hearing the Dhamma, for sure. It's very possible. From my understanding, we may need to look more into that. Maybe ChatGPT knows about that. But it sounds right. And in terms of like looking for Buddhist temples near you, you may be surprised. A lot of very high level monks are not. I know one very high level monk, probably enlightened, I would say, who lives in Jacksonville, Florida. And he just devoted, wonderful, beautiful, bright, incredible monk from the Truklam tradition out of Vietnam. He was the first Dharma gate, the first Sangha gate that opened its door to me after I made my decision to leave my lay life behind in Seattle, Washington. And he opened the door, he accepted me when I was at a very low place of renunciation and practice and even unstable. And he said, come in, welcome in to come live at the temple. He's in Jacksonville, Florida now. And a lot of these monks, they may not be familiar with social media. Certainly not like how I'm able to use social media, right? And so there's positives and negatives to that. But one aspect is that there might be a Buddhist monk that is actually enlightened or at a very, very high spiritual level, right? That's a mile down the road. So going on pilgrimage and this kind of not seeking, but exploring the different Buddhist temples in your area is a very good way to go about stepping more fully into the spiritual path. And it's not about Buddhism, but Buddhism is a gold standard, for sure. Buddhism is unparalleled in its capacity to hold a tradition that is non-religious in nature. Enlightenment is peace. Suffering is suffering. The cause of suffering is constant desire. The path to ending suffering, be a good person. Very, very simplified. It's an invitation, not an instruction, but be a good person, practice meditation, develop insight, develop deeper seeing, deeper looking into the truth. What's religious about that? And what is the truth? What are the three marks of reality or truth in Buddhism? Impermanence, interconnectedness or non-self, and dukkha. There is suffering. So there's nothing religious in that. And yet Buddhism and Buddhist monks in this tradition is thriving and has thrived since 2,600 years ago in ancient India up to the present day, where Sri Lanka is a Buddhist state. Thailand is a Buddhist state. Myanmar is a Buddhist state. We also have Bhutan, mysterious Bhutan. So there's nothing remotely comparable in Hinduism or Advaita Vedanta or Western secular Buddhism or secular mindfulness. There's nothing that compares to it in terms of what you can receive, in terms of how it can support you. So at least for me, I want to go towards what can offer me the most support so that I can help the most people. And that starts with helping myself, with nurturing and attending to my beloved one, this body. Even to call it this body is a little bit obscene. This is my beloved one. Hello? Come on in. Yes. Yeah. Hello? I'm a little bit spoiled right now. I'm staying at this really incredible Buddhist temple, a Tibetan Buddhist temple. And the internet is very lovely. They gave me a very nice room. So I'm feeling very comfortable right now at this place. The two monks here are very wise and beautiful. I believe they're both Tibetan. They may be Nepalese, but they can speak Italian and I guess also Tibetan. But they're very kind and generous.
Can they speak English?
Yes, yes, they can.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a question. So going back to the idea of volunteering, just doing it versus offering.
Well,
Sometimes it seems as though I'm in a temple where all of the tasks are kind of being done, or there's a protocol to do such a thing. Maybe I jump in and like I start sweeping the floor, but the next day, all of a sudden, the floor gets swept before I get there. So there's a sense of path of least resistance, not to cause a disturbance, versus just try to push ahead and do something. So I tend to fall back on meditation as a good deed, but I don't want to be failing to try to, as you say, clean
yeah.
up the urine. So maybe some words about meditation, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so what you're saying is correct, Karuna, and doing good deeds with mindfulness and detachment is not separate from meditation. In fact, meditation is the highest good deed. It's not to think about. It's not that we think about it, we talk about it, we discuss about it. It's just cleaning urine off the floor, or it's just meditating, right? And in terms of doing good deeds and doing social work and doing meditation, we slowly, because we don't want to get upset or unnecessarily shaken, but we began to practice expanding, widening out, brightening out. So this can include listening to Dhamma talks. This can also include going for walks, right? And when we go for walks, when we broaden out our way of being, we may find that there are opportunities there to do good deeds, all kinds of good deeds, and that is not separate from our meditation. So, for example, in India, if you stay in your room all the time, well, you can either meditate or maybe try and clean or do some other things that are accessible in terms of doing good deeds, and you might get quite constricted in that because meditation is very subtle, and we want to practice right meditation rather than wrong meditation. We want to practice mindfulness with detachment rather than just mindfulness. Mindfulness is not enough. And anyway, don't get tangled up in meditation. Where is this? I've got a document here. I have a dream that one day I'll be doing a live stream, I'll be doing a Dhamma talk, and I'll have documents, and I'll kind of sort through them, and clear them out, and then be reading from them. But I've got an image here from a teaching from Ajahn Chah that I'd like to share with the group. Hopefully it comes right along. Yeah. Do not try to be anything. Do not make yourself into anything. Do not be a meditator. Do not become enlightened. When you sit, let it be. When you walk, let it be. Grasp at nothing, resist nothing. But back to India. If you are constricted in your room or what have you, then you would be limited in terms of what you can do. All right? But if you go for a walk and you have a satchel, a bag that is chock full of candies, or chock full of the lowest denomination rupee, well, there's going to be a lot of people out there, especially in Bodh Gaya, that you can give to, children that you can give candy to, people that are on the streets that you can give some rupees to. In the lowest denomination, because there's going to be a lot of people with their hands out. And, if you give it all to one person, you might be diminished in terms of your expression of generosity, and practicing with that. And it's more connection, right? It's that connection of offering and giving and seeing and bearing witness. So we go out and we walk and we practice and we expand and we bless. We bless with the opening. We bless with the finishing. We bless with the resolution of non-discrimination. We offer out non-judgmental awareness, really. We widen out with that non-judgmental awareness. And when our legs get tired, or when we, maybe it's a little bit overwhelming in certain places, then we walk back. We take a rest. We meditate, or we sweep, or we enjoy our life of being good, of knowing ourselves. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Ariana, would you like to share anything or ask any question?
Bhante, I don't have any question
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Last thing about our question, please.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you recently got some feedback from Sayadaw. I was wondering if you have any guidance on how to approach a teacher for feedback. When is it appropriate? Please speak to that.
Yeah. We approach the teacher for feedback without like expectation to get what we want. So in that case, we want to get feedback. We have the desire for feedback, and that is okay. But we shouldn't approach with force. We approach with generosity, and this is the generosity of spirit. Dear teacher, dear beloved one, I have been going through trials and tribulations. If you may, please offer me some guidance on how to move forward. And if we have a teacher that's not well known, if we have a teacher that has a lot of time and a lot of space, then we may expect to get more attention or more energy from them. But when it comes to Sayadaw, we have to be understanding about the expansiveness of his work, And it's more of an invitation. It's more of an opening. It's more of a letting know rather than telling, right? Like, hey, I need some feedback. Tell me what to do. It's more of an invitation, more of an opening quality that goes along with it. And when we have a teacher, when we have trust in someone who's farther along on the path than we are, or maybe, or we think that they can help us in some way, try to understand that, like in Sayadaw's example, he is uncomprehendibly compassionate. It's his job, it's my job as a monk to be very compassionate and open and gentle and reflective. So have faith, have trust in the teacher or those your peers who may be farther along on the path than you are, that they do know about the teachings and they do know about the path, and even though they may make mistakes, they will fall back. They will come back to the path. They will come back to compassion. They will come back to forgiveness. They will come back to true love. And that your relationship with an inability to come back with that as often as you may like to, and we all have that, right? We all want to be so much more compassionate and peaceful and gentle and forgiving. Don't confuse that with your teacher, right? Don't confuse that with the Buddha. And that's what the teacher is meant to represent. And if the teacher responds consistently in this way of harshness or roughness, seemingly to be, well, don't get stuck on seemingly, because things can seem all kinds of different ways. But if you feel that there's not a sense of compassion and love there, then you move on. You find another teacher, and it's not like you're switching football teams or something like that. There's no competition, but you find another access point for that compassion and that insight into how you can move forward. And it is always helpful, usually, to be concise, but if you can expand your conciseness, to include more information, then that's also okay. Just don't overload, don't dump, your stuff, because it would be very difficult to manage all that. Just try to be as concise and precise and direct as is possible. And the response that you may receive could be very direct and short. And then using that as a koan, or using that as a practice pointer moving forward. Don't try to have a conversation about it, because it's like trying to have a conversation with the Buddha. They may be wrapped in taking care of all kinds of different things, and also they may be renunciates. It may be their way to renounce. It may be their way to put down and not to pick up. And that's also a teaching in itself. Even not answering. I've had times when, I've had certain teachers where I've reached out to them and even in person and not received an answer, almost like an ignoring. That's also a teaching. It's a very profound and deep teaching to not receive a response. Welcome in 76123. Would you like to introduce yourself? You'll need to unmute your microphone. You can also try to find a place to leave a message.
Namo Buddhaya. My name is Rampal.
What is
I
that?
am
Can you
from
say that
India.
again?
I am from India.
What is your name?
Rampal.
How to spell that?
Hello. My name is Rampal.
Rampal, okay.
Yeah, I am from India.
Welcome.
Thank you. Namo Buddhaya.
Yes, hello. Lunchtime. Okay, dear, I'm coming right now. So, dear ones, it is lunchtime here at the temple, and this is my chance and my opportunity to be with the sangha here, spend some time with them. So, sending a lot of love, a lot of gratitude for being here with me today, and for being a part of this sangha and supporting so much with your presence and your time, which is valuable to me. And I thank everyone, and we'll just finish with a Namo Tassa. Okay? Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Take care.